Hey, this is Greg from Burnt Sherpa, and you're watching Brutally Delicious. Today, we're making jerk Turk. Traditionally, this would be a jerk chicken recipe, but I happen to have a giant turkey breast from a leftover turkey that I got after Thanksgiving and has been in my freezer taking up way too much space. We did this last year, and it was a huge hit with everyone who tried it. So, and this isn't the standard jerk recipe that you would find like in a Caribbean restaurant. It's kind of my version, a Texified version of jerk. So we're starting off with all the fresh ingredients, most notably a couple of big bunches of cilantro, and I'm just kind of rough chopping this stuff because it's all going to go in the blender and be made into a big tasty paste that's going to coat this turkey breast for close to a week. Because it's such a big piece of meat, it can take a long time in the fridge just soaking up all the goodness. This is 2 bunches of green onion, and I'm just going to whack off the little roots here, and again that's just going to be another rough chop. Very helpful when you're cooking to have a little trash bowl nearby so you don't have to make a bunch of trips to the can. Now there are a few ingredients in Caribbean cooking, especially in this recipe, that are kind of essential. One of which are the peppers. These are Scotch bonnet peppers. And I grew them here in my backyard because you really can't find these at the store very easily. And these are actually little guys left over from last year that I just took out of the freezer because we're filming this in March, end of March, and I don't have any growing. I have a couple of plants growing, but they're not making peppers yet. They'll be ready in around June. And these particular Scotch bonnets are known as Freeport Scotch bonnets because they were bred on the island of Freeport in the Bahamas. So they're this real pretty orange, and they definitely pack a kick. Often you will see in these recipes that you can substitute habaneros, and you can, but there is a big difference in the flavor between a Scotch bonnet and a habanero, in my opinion. We're gonna put a big knob of ginger in here. And with the ginger, I don't get too precious about peeling off the exterior paper-like skin because it's all going to just get blended up anyway. But I do kind of roughly carve some of that stuff off just to get any kind of knobby dirt traps out of there. And again, with the old garbage bowl there. I may have to give this a rough blend just to make room in the blender here in a minute. I'm gonna throw a few garlic cloves in. Just give them a quick smash so they come out of their little paper skin. And I'll just throw them in whole because they're gonna get blender-fied anyway. Cut off any weird looking This is one of my favorite knives, by the way. It's a Hattori knife from Japan, and it's wicked sharp. Often it's a good idea to handle the peppers with gloves if you're going to do a lot of de-seeding, by the way, because it can get you when you go to the bathroom later or touch your eye. And these are little shallots. If you don't have shallots, you can just skip this or use a little sweet onion. I'm going to use a little bit of both because I need to make such a big batch. if I were making this for chicken, I would just use thighs and drumsticks probably, and marinate it for at least 24 hours. But since this is a big old turkey breast, I need more volume just to coat the entire bird. So I'm using everything I have and a little more of those things than I usually would. Quick blender break and break some of this down. Didn't blend up very well since there was no liquid in there yet, but I needed to make a little space. I'm not gonna put this whole onion in here. Ooh, I do smell those peppers now that I blended it up a little. Half an onion. I'm gonna put the juice of a few limes. Usually for just the chicken version of this, I would probably put 2, but I'm going to use all 3 of these guys, and I don't think these limes are all that juicy. Well, that's pretty good. There's a little history with this recipe. I went to school in Florida, and we took a few trips to the Caribbean when I was in Florida. And it got me thinking about Caribbean food. And in Texas, there's a big thing called Tex-Mex, especially in the Houston area where we are, which is kind of a hybrid of Mexican food and Texas with the Texas touch. And I started thinking about making like a Tex-Carib version of some of the Caribbean dishes, because they all have, or not all, but many of them are spicy, and we like spicy around here. This is a 1/4 cup, a little more of brown sugar. It kind of helps cut the heat a little bit, but you got to be careful with the sugary stuff because it can burn very easily on the smoker. But we're doing this with indirect heat, and it's a little easier to get away with more sugar. One of the other critical ingredients when it comes to especially jerk chicken is allspice. So these are allspice berries that I toasted in a cast iron skillet and then ground up in a coffee grinder. And I'm going to put a good couple of heaping teaspoons in there of this. This is one of the defining taste profiles of jerk. And just so you can see what they look like, these are what allspice berries look like. They look like just kind of big peppercorns, if you can see that. And then one of the other critical ingredients, and honestly, if you had the lime, the allspice, the peppers, and some thyme, which is what this is, you've got the critical stuff, and then everything else is debatable, not absolutely necessary. Get that stem out of there. And I'm just going to use strip some little baby thyme leaves straight in until I get the feeling that's enough. The original recipe that I started modifying came from a book called How to Grill that I got probably 15-20 years ago, and it has a jerk recipe for pulled pork, actually. And I did consult that book just real quick before shooting this today to see how far I have deviated from the original. And one thing the original recipe says to use that I've never really remembered is to use some marjoram. So I do have some, so we're going to throw a little marjoram in. Why not? And then for a few more liquids just to make this blend a little better. And in the original recipe was some soy sauce. Measure carefully. And he had plain white vinegar, but I like a little rice vinegar. It has a nice little pungent kick. I don't put a whole lot of salt in this because I'm going to salt the bird itself quite a bit. This is cinnamon. All these warming spices are kind of good in Caribbean food. And this is a little bit of ground cloves. A little goes a long way with this, but it does impart kind of an earthy, warm spice flavor that I really like with this recipe. And the last little touch I'm going to put in is honey, just a little. Again, too much honey can make things burn easily. When I make this for chicken, I often do it on the grill with a little direct, indirect, back and forth. And you really have to watch it because the sugary stuff can really start burning quickly on the direct heat. All right, back to the blender we go. Nice and green. And you can just smell that peppery, the Scotch bonnets hitting you in the face. I always know when I've done it right when it smells like that right there. Of course you can't smell that, but that's okay. I'm gonna grab, now this turkey was a full-size butterball turkey from the freezer section, and I just cut it up like a big chicken. So I left the wings on the breast, but this is the size of the breast. So I'm going to put a little kosher salt all over the skin here, and that salt will initially draw some water out of the bird, but then it'll start sucking everything back in and pull some of the marinade into the meat. And this is so huge, you can get real generous with the seasoning and not have to worry about making it overly salty. If you drop your salt from a distance, it kind of spreads in the air and more evenly coats. So now we're just going to pour this right over. Beautiful color. Once it cooks, it'll lose a lot of this bright green, but it'll still have a green tint, which is part of the fun. I didn't even think about the fact that I'm wearing this green shirt to match, but Failure is a great band, so I'm glad I wore it anyway. Now, before you get to spreading this around, I highly recommend using gloves because, like I said, honey, can you grab me a... My assistant, my lovely wife, is grabbing me a glove because the microphone cord won't quite reach. Thank you. What you want to do is just kind of massage it in, cover it with plastic wrap, which is what I'm about to do. And then we're going to just let this hang out in the fridge for pretty much a week. Back of the fridge in my refrigerator is very cold. We don't have to worry about this going bad. And every couple of days I'll take it out and just make sure that every little part of the breast here is making contact with the marinade. And just kind of give it a little massage, rub it in a little bit. And that's that. So now we're going to take advantage of the internet time machine, come back in a week, and I'll show you how we cook it. Okay, welcome back. The time machine has taken us all the way to Good Friday today, and I've got the turkey leg quarters that I didn't actually show in the video originally with a different kind of dry rub, but it does have a little allspice in it, so there will be a hint of some of that Caribbean flavor to this. But the breast here, the feature of this video, has been marinating in this delicious green concoction for 5 days. So I'm going to insert a probe here, just like so, and we're going to take it over to the smoker. The smoker I'm using is a Weber Smoky Mountain, which is a great smoker if you live in the city and need something with a small footprint. The heat source is mostly charcoal, but I threw a little oak in. Oak is the preferred, post oak is the preferred wood for Texas barbecue. So we're getting that Texas Caribbean thing going on here. I'm just gonna sit this guy on here. Skin side up. The thing I like about the Smoky Mountain is there's a water pan in here, so it'll generate some steam at the same time, and it just keeps the heat very consistent. I'm gonna grab this up. Just enough room. So the goal here is low and slow. It's running at about 225 degrees right now, and it'll take 2 or 3 hours, but I'll let the probe really tell me when to take it off. So we'll be back in a minute when it's ready. And here they are, the finished product. Got a glossy mahogany finish, and we're gonna take them off to rest now. All right, so here's one of the breasts. The other stuff's behind me on the counter. And then real quick, I don't know if it'll be quick, but I'm gonna try and take this wing off real smoothly and get it, ooh, that just wants to break right off. Look at that. The total cook time ended up being a little longer than I thought. It was about 3.5 hours. Very good. That'll be a delicious bite. And then we have to taste it, right? So I'm going to use this knife right here to cut some bigger slices. And I bet I have some taste volunteers. There's the 4-legged kind behind me. But I also have my Caribbean-born 17-year-old son. And I bet he'd be happy to take a piece. But let's look at this right quick. Oh yeah, I mean, come on, that's just breaking apart. Hey Pete, come here.
Yeah.
Can I interest you in some delicious jerky turkey?
Of course, it's any kind of food. I like it. That's good.
Not too spicy.
Not at all.
But you can taste a little hint. Mmm. There you go. Mm. Donkeys.
Give me some with no skin up here.
I'm giving them a non-spicy bite. There you go. All right, I'm gonna call this is a success. Oh, also, I made, to go with this, the rice and peas recipe from that the Dude Can Cook's channel. So come over here. The one thing I did that kind of Texified it a little bit was I used black beans instead. But it's got a Scotch bonnet, some allspice, so it has some of those same flavors carrying over. A little thyme, coconut milk, garlic, onion, and rice. Toasted in this pan and combined it all at the end and folded it all together. Okay. Now we'll do a few plates.
First, Louis Johnson. You might have heard him on a few Michael Jackson hits, but here he is from an old school western that I absolutely love. And when you watch it, you'll understand immediately why his nickname was Thunder Thumbs. Hey!
So I'm once again Greg from Burnt Sherpa, and that was the Jerk Turk, and you've been watching Brutally Delicious.